Okay, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. You're listening to In the Company of Charity podcast of the Daughters of Charity. And I'm Sister Liz, and I'm here with Sister Elizabeth, as always, sister friend, podcast co-host. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for that great welcome. It's always good to be with you, Sister Liz, and always good to have a new episode of In the Company of Charity on its way.
Yeah, so we are doing something different with today's episode because it's not actually an interview of ours. It's a interview that was done on one of our sisters from Loyola University in New Orleans, and we just love it. Sister Kathy Overmann is a delight and a true daughter of charity, and we feel like her story and her experience are definitely worth sharing and getting to our audience. So we present this to you. It's not an interview we did, but hey, it's a daughter of charity, and maybe this is the beginning. I don't know, Sister Elizabeth, what do you think? The beginning of sharing some content that maybe is other person generated. I don't know.
I don't know either. I really appreciate their effort in trying to get more voices around religious life and around the church. So I think any way we can promote each other's work, it's great. And I really appreciate their interview with Sister Kathy. It's really, really great. And it was just good to hear her voice, you know. So I think everyone's going to really enjoy it because she's just an amazing sister.
We won't give it all away. We hope you enjoy the episode. God bless you. You are all in our prayers, and a happy Easter season to you. We're still in Easter, so enjoy it.
What is flourishing, and how might one flourish in religious life and beyond? That is precisely what the Flourishing Sisterhood podcast explores, as we capture the rich stories of Catholic religious sisters to amplify their unique voices. Their powerful experiences have inspired many and deeply transformed the church and the world. Supported by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation's Catholic Sisters Initiative and recorded at Loyola University, New Orleans, this podcast offers opportunities to consider the changing landscape of sisterhood and of the life of faith today. Join us for these stories of spirituality, resilience, innovation, resolve, and faith in action. This episode contains content that may be distressing or triggering to some. Listener discretion is advised. Please check the episode description for further details and take care of yourself.
In today's episode, Sister Kathy Overmann, a daughter of charity, explores the ways in which she has served individuals living on the periphery across the Midwestern and Southern U.S. Sister Kathy first discerned her vocation following her high school graduation when she felt God calling her to a life of service. She has wholeheartedly involved herself in ministries which require her to reach people through compassionate and empathetic conversations. Before returning to New Orleans for her most recent ministry, she was missioned in Chicago, Illinois at Marillac St. Vincent Family Services, helping senior citizens during the pandemic. Now, Sister Kathy volunteers 5 days a week at the Harry Thompson Center to provide for unhoused New Orleanians. She opens with an introduction to her congregation and the historical roots of their charism in 17th century France.
I'm Sister Kathy Overmann. I'm a daughter of charity of St. Vincent de Paul. All right, the Daughters were founded in Paris, France in 1633 by Vincent de Paul and St. Louise de Marillac, who is our co-founder. Louise de Marillac was a widow, had a son that had a hard time, but Vincent was her spiritual director, and they decided she wanted to do more and wanted to be a religious, but we're not considered religious, because Vincent said our community served those on the poor and it was hard for the sisters to serve the poor. So let them renew their vows every year, not to make final commitments. So we're a little bit different than some communities, but I know the daughters are one of the ones who renew their vows on March 25th every year. But that's why we were founded, because we worked on the streets of Paris. We didn't live in convents per se, we lived in houses, and we wore the clothing of the peasants at the time. So that's what we were founded, to serve those who were less unfortunate. We served in the poor hospitals there. We took in the orphanages. We taught kids on the street how to read, and we went into people's homes and served them that needed food, and that we took food to them and that. So that's why it would be service of the poor is our main charism, is to serve those, now we say, who are less unfortunate or living on the peripheries. That's where our charism is. But we live in community, and that's very important. We need this work. To do this work, we need to come together in prayer, and that's what we do. We pray morning prayers and evening prayers together. We kind of meditate together, and we have once a month we do a retreat together, and then we have an annual retreat also. But that was all built in for us to take time out for ourselves and to recollect ourselves because of the time of the works. Back then, it was very hard to do.
Sister Kathy reflects on her family's religious values and her church-going experiences as a child in St. Louis.
I have had 6 sisters, 3 older and 3 younger than me, and now 3 have passed on. So there's only 4 of us left. And, we went to Mass on Sundays together and that. And my mother was a convert. My dad was raised Catholic. I mean, we did pray the rosary until we all got a little bit older and we had things going on. There was a lot of activities then, sports activities and stuff that was happening. And so we didn't do the altars anymore. But we did pray at the table. I was saying, we used to say the Sacred Heart prayer after meals. My parents had, I don't know why, a great devotion to the Sacred Heart. So I don't say they were very religious. We had to go to Mass on Sundays. I didn't pray a lot when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, you didn't. So when you had a test or something, it's when you would pray, I did. But otherwise, I really wasn't into it. But then when God called me to try it, I said, okay. And so there wasn't like I had a strict religious family.
When asked what connected her to the Daughters of Charity, she reflects on the ways the sisters' temperament resonated with her.
I looked at different orders when I was looking. I was taught by the Daughters of Charity in St. Louis, Missouri. In high school, I had the St. Joseph Sisters of Crown and Lead in grade school. I felt the daughters were more human on a human level. They also had spiritual level, but there was this more human and touch kind of reality, what was going on with people and how they serve people.
Sister Kathy tells her entry story, beginning with her first bid to become a sister right out of high school and her second calling as a young adult.
I came when I was 21. I back up a little bit of my history. I did want to enter after high school, and I was kind of told no at the time because they thought I needed more experience, whatever that meant. And so I said, fine. I couldn't find a job, but the sisters that I knew in high school knew the sisters in Kansas City, and I went and worked in a children's home for 2.5 years. And then I asked to join the Daughters again, and they took me this time. And that was in 1975 when I was a postulant. In 1976 is when I entered what we would call the seminary, but other communities say novitiate. And that's when we got sister put in front of our name, when we become official sisters. Daughters of Charity is when we enter into the seminary. And so I've been happy ever since.
She expands on the influences which led her to religious life and how that initial no led her to explore her spirituality and relationship with the church.
I dated and everything, and I did all kind of crazy things when I was a kid. So it's not like I was this prayerful kid always going to church and all that. I wasn't. And I think one day I was into sports a lot. I was playing basketball at school, And I went out for a drink of water, and just something hit me. I felt God was calling me to do something different with my life, because I really wanted to go in to be a PE teacher, and because I was into sports, and so that's what I was going to do. I was in school for a while, the first semester, and then when I was told no, to take some time to think, and that's when I went to Kansas City to work in the children's home. And I thought, okay, so I tried other things. I even stopped going to church for a while. I was kind of upset. The new Christian wave was coming at that time when they had to figure one way. I kind of went that way with some friends I knew and went to their, but I still didn't feel comfortable. So we went to see Jesus Christ Superstar. And the song Mary Magdalene was singing, it was like it hit me. And I went home and started praying. And I felt called again to try out again. And so I did. And it was just like it hit me that God is really calling me to the Daughters of Charity. Why not? And so let me go try it out and see if I liked it. And so I have. After 48 years, I'm still here. It's not all been roses, and I have to admit, there's up and downs, and there's been some doubts sometimes. But I pray about those doubts when it happens. I'm one who has to know why things go. And I used to tell my spiritual director, when I get to heaven, God and I are going to have long conversations. I have a lot of questions for him, and especially because of the neighborhoods I lived in and worked in, there was a lot of gang and killing. It's like, God, why is this world like this? What am I doing? Because I worked mostly with senior citizens. I was in their homes and ran programs and activity programs for them. And I lived in the projects with them in St. Louis. So we heard the ambulance all the time and everything going on. And you got kind of down, and so you would question why. But then God says, no, this is where you're needed. Because one day I was ready to say, I give up. I was ready to go and say, hey, I'm thinking about. But I started seeing a spiritual director, and we talked, which is very important to help me to see God is. And it's like we do have our will. God gave us our own will, and we have his will. Listen to what's going on. And it's like, you're right. God wants me here. This is where I feel at peace as being a daughter of charity.
Sister Kathy shares a deeply personal reason that she feels confident and comfortable speaking to people of all walks of life. She says that she tries to see the presence of God in Jesus in who she meets throughout the day, and to be aware of his presence.
I never finished college. So I'm with all these sisters who have masters, double masters, PhDs. They have all these degrees behind them. So I thought I needed to go to school. And I tried it at school. And school and I never got along. But they said, Kathy, look at what you've done. And then at one day I thought, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. And that was the starting of it, because I felt I wasn't enough to be in community. And people started pointing it out to me. I went through treatment, and then I realized I could go in anywhere. I could talk to the most educated person or to the ones who's not much educated, that my personality the way it is, and I made people feel comfortable who they are. I might feel uncomfortable myself, but that's okay, because I bring out who I am. I don't have to put on a facet. That was a big time. It's like, should I stay? And God told me, yeah. And I felt God saying to me that time, yes. You just need to work out, not compare yourself. And people care about you. And look how you touched other people's lives, no matter what walk of life they were in. And I couldn't see that, even though sisters I lived with would tell me that and say that to me. And they go, look at you. You can walk in a room and you sit down and you start talking to somebody, or somebody starts talking to you, because I am an introvert and it does me in. But if they start talking, and I can start talking a little bit, and I can get into the rhythm of it. And I had to look at that and say, yeah, I can talk to anybody.
Sister Kathy explains how her faith was fortified during times of hardship.
what strengthened my faith in God was the people that I work with, the service, not just my coworkers, but people I serve. They serve me. That's how I look at it. I worked with senior citizens most of my community life, and their faith, they taught me a lot about my own spiritual, and just listen to them and all the stuff they have gone through. And I look at these great men and women who their faith is so strong, and it's like, I want to be like that. And I feel Jesus with me, hugging me, around me all the time. I think the Spirit works through all of us one way, and we just come together, and that's when the Spirit is right there.
She begins talking about her missions, starting with her first ministry experience in New Orleans after she finished seminary.
I worked here when I first came out of our seminary at St. Elizabeth's Home for Children for 2 years. Then they sent me to St. Louis, and that's when I started working with the elderly, with this elder sister at this agency. And I worked with them for 6 years, and then I went to Dallas. And Dallas I loved because I worked with the Latinx community then, the area we lived in. And half of the seniors, most of the women there, didn't speak totally English, because most of them did domestic work when they came from Mexico, so they didn't have to learn a lot of English. They just accepted me because I tried to learn. They taught me some Spanish, so I would try to use it. And the men there got into it too, and I got very close to them, and it was totally different, but it was still in a periphery neighborhood. I drove the bus. Then I went back to St. Louis again at the same place I worked at before. Different seniors, different things. And so it's mostly, like I said, it's been seniors for different, where I planned programs, except for when I went to Chicago. It was a totally different seniors. I went and delivered food to their homes. And once a month, we had a group of seniors who came together, and we talked about what was going on, like Social Security and stuff like that. They're called the Take Charge Women. There was a sister that was in charge of that group, and so I was just her helper. It was kind of different than I was used to, because I was used to being activity-wise, we have to do more activities, but this was not. But I love going back into the home. I love doing home visits. And that's where you got to know people, by sitting in their houses with them. And they felt more comfortable telling their stories.
Her most recent ministry at the Harry Thompson Center is her third mission in New Orleans. Sister Kathy describes her role as a volunteer and says what she's learned from the staff and patrons there.
I'm actually a volunteer at the Rebuild Center, and there's 3 agencies that work there: Harry Thompson Center, DePaul, USA, and the Lantern Light. I worked with the Harry Thompson Center. I volunteer. I'm a volunteer. 5 days a week, I go, and they have a charging station for their phones, and I charge their phones. But we give over-the-counter medicines like cough drops, Tylenol, ibuprofen, antacid pills, and vitamins, because those are legal that we can do. But I also interact with the guests that come in. And when I first went there, I've been here 2.5 years now. When I was in Chicago for 10, and then I came here to see what I wanted to do, because they asked me to move here. They said, we want you to look and see what kind of work you want to do. As soon as I walked into the Harry Thompson, the Rebuild Center, I said, I don't need to look anymore. This is where I was supposed to spend a week here. I only spent 2 days here. I said, I know what I want to do. This is where I wanted to be. Because I felt God's presence so real. And the guests that walked through there, and I talked with some of them, and some of them asked me to pray with them, and I did. And then I talked with some of the staff there and how dedicated the staff is. I thought, wow, this is why God wants me to be here. I'll fit in really easily. And I have. I mean, it's just like, That's where I know I've been called. And I've been happy every day. I'm ready to go to work. I mean, even though I'm a volunteer, I'm ready to go there. They tease me. They think I'm part of the staff members now, the staff themselves. They included me in their staff. And I laugh. I told them I'm their grandmother because I'm much older than all of them. So they all can be my grandma, like grandkids, And so I just kind of give them little pointers too, because the work you do is hard and you can be burnt out easily. And I know from working in underpaid work, but liking it, you can get burnt out. And I have been where I was. I think the last 2 years in Chicago I was, but I wouldn't admit it. But now I can admit it. And so my mission is, what are you doing this weekend for yourself? I asked them that. And they asked me questions too, which is a sister, because some are Catholic, some aren't. Some of them are even go Catholic and haven't been around sisters because there's not enough sisters to go around, so they don't know. And so I just tell them, and I said, I know I'm different than some of the other sisters that have been through here, because I'm who I am. But I know I'm a daughter of Charity first, but then I'm Kathy Overmann, and that's who I am. And I have to be true to myself. And I cannot change and be holy and pious because I never was. And so I'm never going to be that person. But yes, so I just be who I am, and that's more acceptable. But the being here to work with the unhoused, I love it. I talk with them. I learn about their stories. They get to trust you and they tell you their stories. And then when they find out, eventually I get comfortable and they'll say, oh, she's one of us. One time somebody says that she's been in the hood, which I've worked in rough neighborhoods. So I do know what it is to be having gunshots going off and hitting the ground to make sure you don't get shot at. So I've been there. So I hear them. And then when some of them say, I'm going through treatment, sister, I'll sit there and listen. And then I share my story to pass it on. And that's what it's about. And they're like, huh? I said, yeah, I'm just as human as you are. I want to be able to do that if I did not have the people in my life that has been in my life. Like my spiritual director, she was excellent. But sisters I've lived with never turned me away. And I could never have been like that, and I always felt belonging. If I didn't feel belonged, I probably would have been not happy at all. But I'm this great. This is where God has called me to my end, I feel, to work with the unhoused.
She moves into a discussion of her spirituality and its effect on her time in the Daughters of Charity. Sister Kathy tells us about her image of the Lord and gives insight into her conversations with Him.
I see Him as my friend. God and Jesus are the same to me, talking to me all the time. I talk to Him a lot, and some days I want to close them off, or not close them off, and especially if I have a difficult time with one of the guests at Rebuild. It's like, I say, wait a minute, did I hear this little thing in my head? That's me. Oh yeah, okay.
When considering what has taken precedence in her spiritual life, she reflects on the importance of her relationships with other people, her prayer life, and acceptance of others.
I think the most important thing for my spiritual life is being with the people, praying with them, or praying with the sisters. Those are other things that come. Mass is important too. I go to Mass all the time, so that is very important to get the energy to serve better. That's important. But I don't have to go and preach to somebody else and say, God's telling you this or that. I listen to what they believe. We have one God, and I believe it's the same God that we all believe in. If we believe there's one God, so the Baptist, whoever, what religion you are, is all the same God. We have different factions of the churches. That's true. But we still have the one God. And if we believe in that, and that's my belief, I believe in one God. You might believe in the one God, but you might be something else or nothing. That's fine. I respect that. But this is how I worship. This is the way you worship. But we still believe in the same God.
Sister Kathy's idea of a flourishing church includes living out the Beatitudes and cultivating togetherness and acceptance.
My vision of a flourishing church is following the Catholic social teachings. And really, what the social teachings are saying, we had the Beatitudes today. That's telling us how we should live, how we should be. That's it. Not saying God's going to do this if you don't do this. It's like, no. If we can't see those who you gave me water when I was thirsty. You gave me food when I was hungry. Even the spiritual part, you helped me spiritually when I was unspiritual. And that's where it comes from. And I believe that's how a flourishing church would be. It's not telling somebody they're doing stuff wrong, but saying, how are we serving one another? Even each other in the church. How are we looking at people going up to communion? Oh, look how they're dressed. Or I'm in church and then after Sunday, go get out of Mass on Sunday and say, well, look at that. That person looked like it hung over or something. Well, it's like, you know what? Then that's not following what Jesus said. And I think about the passage when he had Mary saying with the prostitute that he drew the line in the sand. Who can throw the first stone? Nobody can throw a stone because all of us are sinners. And so why should I condemn you or say stuff about you when I have to look at myself? And is where it's at for me, for a church to flourish, that we have a consistent together. And I know we won't, but to even compromise with it, to flourish and say, we accept everybody. And really mean it, and not just saying it. And it's hard. It's very hard in today's world.
To conclude, Sister Kathy suggests to listeners that they can learn mutual respect and authenticity from her experience in religious life.
I hope that the people who I meet and they see me being the authentic person, seeing that I am working with Christ is in me, that I see Christ in you. And I hope that works out. Somebody once told me this, for missionaries to go and they go evangelize, you can't go preaching first. You got to learn about the people. And I think that's for the religious who we go out to serve. We need to learn more and walk side by side and listen to what they're talking about, and then start sharing a little bit of our own. And I think that's what my hope is for religious life, is to not be this pious thing. And I keep saying, don't put us on pedestals. We fall off and crumble. We break. We're human. So I want to be equal and say, hey, she's a good sister because she's equal with me on the same level. I'm not higher or lower. That's kind of what I want to see. And like I said about the respect of each other, we're human beings. We should respect each other no matter who you are. Because we are the image of Jesus.